Hello, 7th grade, and welcome to Studio 37 Remote Learning. For this very first unit in art, we will be delving into street art, or artists' artwork that you can see on the streets in cities and actually on train cars as they roll through town. I like talking about street art because it is contemporary, meaning it's art being made right now. It is an American art movement that started in the 1970s and is still growing strong, and it's art that you actually get to interact with on a regular basis. Every single one of you has noticed some talented artists work on the side of train cars as they barrel through town. In this very first video, we will be looking at some of the very early founders of street art and some of the very first people to make it from the subways and the train cars to the galleries. Those would be the artists Keith Harring and Jean-Michel Basquiat. After that, we will look at other ways and other forms that artists make their work and share it with the world. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy the next couple of videos. For our very first unit in art this year, we will be studying street art. I like to look into street art because it is kind of subversive, it is fun, it is an art form that you guys get to interact with in real life. Every one of you has seen somebody's tag on the side of a train as it barrels through town, I'm sure. And it's an American art movement, started in the 1970s and still going strong, making it the longest running art movement ever. Now, to be clear, I want to set up some definitions right off the bat. There is what we call vandalism. Vandalism is the deliberate destruction of property. It has no artistic merit whatsoever, and it is the bad words and body parts kind of mess. So we are not talking about vandalism. We are talking about street art, or works of art made by an artist or group of artists to bring joy, health, to joy, beauty, and or highlight a social issue. And of course, graffiti would be street art made without permission. The first two artists we're going to talk about are both no longer with us, but they are both pioneers in the street art movement and two artists who successfully transitioned from the subways in New York City to the galleries. The very first one's named Jean-Michel, or of course the very first type of art we're going to talk about is tagging. Tagging is writing your name big. Of course, the very first artist, his tag was SAMO, which stood for same old stuff. His name was Jean-Michel Basquiat. He was raised by his abusive father, and after his mother suffered a mental breakdown. He found himself homeless at the age of 15. Started tagging Samo in a crowd all over New York City. As Samo gained notoriety, Basquiat found himself invited to show his work, catching the attention of famous artist and later collaborator Andy Warhol. And a couple of years ago, his Untitled skull sold for $110 million, making him the highest-selling American artist ever. Here's some examples of his work. This one's called The Philistines. Again, I mean, you can see the influence of African masks. I would also say you can see Aborigines, their X-ray drawing technique. You can see that visceral, rich and hard and vivid and just a very expressive piece. You can almost feel the troubles he faced on the streets growing up and being homeless, begging and selling postcards. Not exactly sure where his next meal was coming from. This is a self-portrait alongside his collaborator. That's Andy Warhol on the left and Jean-Michel Basquiat on the right. This is a picture that they both made together. This is a collaboration between Andy Warhol and Jean-Michel Basquiat. And this is the skull that he sold for $110 million a couple years back. Again, very visceral, very rich, very, you can't help but feel the pain that he felt. And of course, Jean-Michel Basquiat died tragically young at the age of 27 due to a drug overdose after battling addiction for years. That is Basquiat on the right, Andy Warhol in the middle, and on the left is the next artist we're going to talk about. His name is Keith Harring. Keith Harring was born in Reading, Pennsylvania in 1958. He moved to New York City in 1978 to attend the School of Visual Arts, and he never left. He quickly found a friend in Basquiat, and like Basquiat, found a mentor in Andy Warhol. Between 1982 and 89, Harring made over 50 murals all over the world. And of course, murals would be street art with permission. In 1988, he founded the Keith Harring Foundation, which provides funding and imagery for AIDS organizations and children's projects. Keith Harring was very passionate about getting children to make art. In 1988, he also worked with 450 of Chicago Public Schools children, making a huge mural for Grant Park. This is a mural that is still up today in New York City, warning of the dangers of the crack, cocaine, which of course was killing people left and right in the 1980s. Look at how big this mural is. If you see, that's Keith Harring standing in front of it right there. So this is a massive mural he did. And a lot of this is very characteristic of his work. You see the bold black outline, you see the funky figures, you see the people moving and shaking, and just kind of, this is very much what his artwork looks like. This, of course, was made in 1982, and it's a warning about the dangers of nuclear warfare. Right here in the middle, this is the radiant child. This shows up over and over and over again in Keith Harring's artwork, and it is to be a symbol of innocence and purity. And of course, this is a mural he did in 1989, which is about the AIDS pandemic, which was striking New York very hard at that time. And Keith Harring himself succumbed to AIDS in 1990. Hey guys, it's me again. I just hope you enjoyed the first part, looking into Jean-Michel Basquiat and Keith Harring. Of course, both of them started tagging in the subways of New York City and ended up very famous and in the galleries. A tag, of course, is writing your name great big, and that is what I want us to work on this week. Your homework is to do 7 sketches of your tag or your nickname great big. So you guys can get started on that. If you go to YouTube, there are a ton of tutorials on different approaches to drawing a graffiti letter style. Also, I want to make sure that you turn your name or your nickname into one solid shape. The next 2 artists that we're going to look at, one of them is a stencil artist, or they make art by using stencils. So a stencil is the template cut out ahead of time so they can quickly make an image. Another one is a wheat paste artist. Wheat pasting is when you make something ahead of time and then glue it to the wall. They are Banksy and Swoon, respectively. So I hope you enjoy the next little bit. I'm going to talk about stenciling. A stencil, of course, is when you cut something out so you can paint really quickly. And stenciling is a very interesting and unique way to make art. I'm sure many of you have probably used a stencil to make letters on a sign or what have you in your time. The stencil artist that I want to talk about is named Banksy. He's probably one of the most famous graffiti artists in the world. He's from Bristol, England. He's made installations, he's made sculptures, he's wrote a book called Wall and Peace, and his documentary, Exit Through the Gift Shop, was nominated for an Academy Award. He uses dark humor and irony to highlight social injustice, and he has traveled the entire world to make art. First piece we're going to look at is in Montgomery, Alabama. This is called I Have a Dream Catcher. As you see, this is both homage to civil rights icon Dr. Martin Luther King and a reminder of his tragic death. So I think Banksy with this piece is pushing us to pursue his dream and stand up against violence. This was actually in England during the Olympics. When the Olympics were in England in 2016, they caught a lot of grief for using child labor. So Banksy wanted to go ahead and let the people at the Olympics know that he was not happy with England and its use of child labor to produce stuff to be sold at the Olympics. This one I think is just kind of funny. And this is actually on the wall between Israel and Palestine. So again, using humor to highlight a social injustice and try to speak some truth and some peace in a part of the world that really needs it. The next artist we're going to talk about, her name is Caledonia Curry, the next style we're going to talk about is wheat pasting. This, of course, is when artists make stuff ahead of time and then glue it to the wall. The artist that we're going to talk about is Swoon, or Caledonia Curry. She is my favorite artist alive right now. I have a huge crush on her, and one of these days I'm going to run away to New York and be with her. I won't even tell you goodbye. But she's a famous wheat pasting artist. She's also the kind of artist that really thinks art does make the world a better place, because she does things like after the earthquake in Haiti a few years ago, she worked with a big group of artists to build both a community center and a house. And also she traveled to Kenya to work with young girls that are victims of violence, and is currently raising money to hire attorneys to persecute the people who did such terrible things. Here's what her artwork looks like. Very intricate, very detailed. This piece is actually in Tunisia, and this is the piece she made in collaboration with the kids in Kenya. And I think you can see the kids' artwork and her artwork in it. She was selling prints of this, and the money that she's raised from selling these prints went to a legal defense fund to help those girls. It's another one that I really enjoyed. That one's in Brooklyn, New York, where she lives. And that is my slideshow, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the videos about some of my favorite contemporary street artists. Again, your assignment this week is to go ahead and sketch or practice drawing your tag 7 different times. Next week, you're going to make a tag. And just like I made videos about Banksy, Swoon, Basquiat, and Harring, I'm going to expect you guys to make videos or do slideshow presentations or write a paper about your favorite contemporary street artist. Stay tuned for more instructions to follow, and have a great week, guys. Thank you.